class on CNS. I'll be discussing headache, then migraine, upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron diseases. So first we'll discuss about headache. So headache could be primary or secondary. So primary headache means the headaches in those the disease is itself is a disorder, like headache itself is a disorder, that is migraine, tension headache, these things
Master.
which are actually the disease itself. There is no other disease which is causing it. That's what this sentence is telling us. Now second headache could be, this headache is a part of the manifestation of other diseases like tumor in the brain, meningitis.
Subarachnoid.
What?
Subarachnoid hemorrhage.
Yeah, subarachnoid hemorrhage, IC bleed, intracranial bleed, sinusitis, all these things. There is a one more pathology which is causing headache here. Okay, so headache is not a primary disease. Okay, that's the difference between headache, primary and secondary. This applies to medical science, complete medical science. For example, if you are dealing with the hypothyroidism, okay, here we have got a primary and secondary. Primary means thyroid gland itself is having problem. Secondary means pituitary gland. Due to this, the hypothyroidism is there. So that's how the classification of is there in medical science. Similarly, primary and secondary has been classified with respect to headache here. Okay. And one more thing you should know in cranium, the structures which cause headache are few. The most of the major parenchyma of the brain is insensitive to pain. So the pain producing structures in the brain are scalp, in the cranium, sorry, scalp, meningeal arteries, dural sinuses, falx cerebri, proximal segments of large pial arteries. These are the one which will cause pain. From here only the pain can be felt. Otherwise, the pain as such is not felt from the brain. That is a pain insensitive, where pain is not felt from ventricular ependyma, choroid plexus, pial veins, and this one is plain parenchyma itself is insensitive to pain. Okay. Now, if you get a patient with headache, which are the serious things you should consider? When these things are there, if these things are there, they suggest there is a serious problem. For example, if the headache onset is sudden, and if it is the first time, severe headache, worst headache, very severe headache, vomiting that precedes headache, okay, subacute worsening over days, worsening, pain induced by bending and lifting, coughing, these all suggest raised intracranial tension. Okay, these things. So there is something wrong with the patient. That's what it suggests. Pain that disturbs sleep, especially. If the sleep is disturbed by the pain, then it suggests something is problematic and presents immediately upon awakening. Immediately upon awakening itself is there, not
Clustered.
after some time. Like that. No, known systemic illness. If you got already known, and if the headache is onset is after 55 years, later years of onset, usually it will not be psychological. It will not be tension. It will be something like temporal arthritis and all that. I will discuss this. Or it could be malignancy, tumor, and all that. It is possible. Fever, unexplained systemic signs. They all suggest severe headache, serious cause of a headache. And if there is associated neurological signs with headache, if you got a patient with associated neurological signs and paralysis and all these things like epilepsy, convulsions, and all that thing, then it is a serious problem. Pain associated with the local tenderness in the region of temporal arteries. It is same thing I was discussing. Temporal arthritis, especially in elderly. Huh? Hmm? These are things which warrants consideration of further workup. Now we'll discuss something called meningitis. Here the pain increases with the movement of the eyeballs. Movement of the eyeballs and pounding type of pain. There is also the photophobia and nausea, vomiting will be there. Okay, these are signs of meningitis causing headache. Now we'll discuss in a few things about intracranial hemorrhage, how it manifests. Whenever the intracranial hemorrhage is there, it will be It starts very fast. Within 5 minutes, you get a maximum headache. It starts and peaks within 5 minutes, and severe headache and lasts longer than 5 minutes. It's not a gradual onset here, sudden onset. That's what is important. It's also same for subarachnoid hemorrhage. Also, there is a neck stiffness here, along with headache. If you get a neck stiffness with sudden in onset, with raised BP, then you should think of subarachnoid hemorrhage. Okay. Now brain tumors. So around 30% of the headaches are due to brain tumors, and these increase with the change in position of the body. They change. Then associated with the nausea, vomiting, which are signs of raised intracranial tension. Will be there. Now we'll solve some. We'll start solving the MCQs related to headache. Here, 45-year-old male presented with a daily headache. He describes 2 attacks per day. And over the past 3 weeks, each attack lasts about an hour and awakens the patient from sleep. The patient has noted associated tearing, that is that is a lacrimation, and reddening of right eye, as well as nasal stiffness. The pain is deep, excruciating, and limited to the right side of the brain head. The neurological examination is non-focal. The most clinical diagnosis of the patient in headache is what is the cause? Can anybody tell me? Migraine,
Cluster headache.
cluster, huh?
Cluster headache.
Cluster.
Cluster. Why do you think it is cluster headache?
Sir, it
Because
is predominantly male, and that is
Yeah.
one
recurrent attack, and it awakes from sleep.
Mm-hmm.
and one side is involved.
Yeah. Even migraine, there could be hemicranial headache. That is fine. Okay. See, male patient. Huh? So as you all told, it looks to like a migraine only. Wait, some student has come. I'll admit him. Okay. As you all told, the possibilities are first migraine, cluster headache, tension headache, brain tumor. The brain tumor, it unlikely because it is sudden onset is there. Huh? And uh, then it
Associated
is,
with maybe
yeah,
associated with
yes,
vomiting, sir. Brain headache.
yeah,
Brain
raised
tumor.
ICT signs are not there, and reddening of the eye, right, neck tearing, lacrimation, nasal stiffness, they're all not signs of a brain tumor. Fine. Tension headache usually it doesn't produce immediately after what is it? Raising from the awakens the patient from sleep. This is not a sign of tension headache because when they sleep, there is no tension, they don't get headache. This is
Yes, sir.
unlikely to be tension headache. Then choices left are migraine and cluster headache. The migraine female, cluster male. Fine. We'll come to that. Yeah. So there is a slide which shows the difference between the migraine and cluster headache. Localized usually to frontotemporal may be generalized. All age groups are affected. Females are more affected. There is family history. There is a family history here. Here, lateralized periorbital. Loss of less commonly temporal. All age groups, but peaks in this age group. 30 to 50. Male predominance. Hereditary factors are absent. What? Hereditary factors are absent. Here they are present. Here they are absent. Now presentation. If it is a classical migraine, there could be aura. That is, we'll discuss about aura later. Builds up gradually. Here it builds up very gradually. Lasts for several hours. Usually this lasts for 40, not more than 45 minutes. Usually throbbing may be dull. Here it is a begin without warning. No aura here. Reaches crescendo within 5 minutes. Gradual build up, crescendo within 5 minutes. Cluster headache. Last for 45 minutes, not that long. Excruciating deep explosive pain awakens from the sleep. After after onset, after awakening, questioned by, this is reduced actually, reduced by sleep. During sleep, the migraine is less, whereas cluster headache, it can start. Sleeping patient may be awakened by cluster headache. Hmm? Associated symptoms in a migraine. Hmm? Here, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea can be there. Photophobia, photopsia, that is fortification of spectra. This is a basically aura. Hmm? Paresthesia, uneasiness can be there. Other neurological symptoms such as clumsiness, weakness, family play, paraplegia, all these things I'll discuss. So these all signs can be there in migraine. Associated symptoms here: homolateral lacrimination, reddening of the eye, nasal stiffness, ptosis, nausea. These are the symptoms. In this case, this is the most likely cause. Now we'll go to the next question. A female patient has an episodic, recurrent left hemicranial headache with nausea and paresthesia on right upper and lower limbs. Most probable diagnosis is
Migraine.
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 Migraine, glossopharyngeal neuralgia, herpes zoster infection of the third nerve, brain tumor. You think it is? What herpes zoster
Migraine.
infection of the third nerve? What is this? I think the madam has discussed this yesterday. Reactivation.
Sir, Ramsay-Hunt syndrome.
Ramsay-Hunt syndrome.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, if it involves. It depends upon which division is involved. Huh? Okay. Hmm? Okay. Then glossopharyngeal neuralgia. This will not cause a hemicranial headache like this, nausea and paresthesia.
Anesthesia.
These things, upper limb paresthesia is not feature of this. Okay. Hmm? Then the brain tumor is recurrent, not
Eyes.
recurrent episodic. Huh? Not
Features of
recurrent.
raised
What?
Feature of raised ICT is not there, sir.
Not there, yeah. Okay. And the leftover choice is migraine, which is more common in female patients, and recurrent hemicranial headache is a classical. It is a sign more likely to be common migraine in this case. It looks like it is a case of a common migraine. Hmm? Hmm? Okay. Hmm. Now, I don't know whether these are there in a newer editions. The common migraine, classical migraine difference. Hmm? Hold on, somebody is trying to join. I'll admit him. Okay. Okay. So the common migraine is commoner. Classical migraine is not common, but it is a classical description is there. Around of the migraines, the classical migraine only forms around 20%. Whereas common migraine is the rest of it. So the classical migraine is only 20% of the cases. So what you commonly see is common migraine. Okay. So the classical description of all visual symptoms you may not get in your clinical practice because most common migraines are non-classical. Okay. Did I confuse you?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, the common migraine, the autonomic nervous dysfunction can be there. Nausea, pallor, vomiting. Hmm? Huh? Whereas classical migraines, it heralded by aura, visual aura, lasting for about 20 minutes. Huh? 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 These predominant symptoms, yawning and loss of concentration here. Where here, these things, you classically see. Visual aura, bright and dark spots, zigzags, heat haze, zigzag heat haze, you have seen heat haze. If you try to see uh, uh, any object beyond a fire, if stars are distraction, that you may feel that distortion. Okay, heat haze distortion here. That could be there. A fig scan puzzle defect, a scintillating scotoma, tunnel vision fortification, spectra, may progress to homonymous hemianopia. These are the auras of classical migraine. Aura means the one before the onset of the migraine, actual headache. These signs can be there. Hmm? That is aura. Hmm? Headache may start anywhere in the cranium here. This is anywhere in the cranium, and it is pounding and throbbing. Whereas here follows aura, usually opposite hemicrania. Hmm? So if you get an aura on opposite side, you will get opposite side female headache. That's what. If you are seeing an uh, visual things on the left side, uh, you get opposite side headache. That is classical migraine. Aura if it is on the left side, the hemicrania headache on the right side. Hmm? And spreads to involve the whole one half to whole head here. But that's not the case here. It doesn't spread like that. Last from hours to days, frequently with the photophobia. Photophobia 6. Patient, if they go for dark environment, they find benefit in reduction of the headache will be there. And these people, it doesn't last like that. And there could be just nausea. It's not hours or days. It's it is with less duration compared to common migraine. Classical migraine doesn't long last. There could be photophobia and all that. Dark environment improvement may not be there in classical migraine. Whereas you can get, if the patient is put in dark environment, they may find reduction in the headache. Okay. Ophthalmoplegic migraine means, what is it? When headache is followed by complete paralysis of third and sixth cranial nerve on the same side of the hemicrania. So when the headache is followed by complete paralysis of the third and sixth nerve on the same side of the hemicrania. When the headache is followed by partial paralysis of third nerve on the same side of hemicrania without scotoma. Headache associated with the third, fourth, sixth nerve paralysis. Headache associated with the optic neuritis. What is correct in this?
Sir, second one.
Huh?
Second one, sir.
Second one. Why do you think it is second one?
Sir, ipsilateral third nerve palsy is there, ophthalmoplegic migraine. Ipsilateral third nerve palsy is there.
Ipsilateral third nerve palsy, but not sixth one. Okay, that is correct. When the headache is followed by partial paralysis of third nerve on the same side of the hemicrania without scotoma is the correct answer. It is just a third nerve palsy. A woman with a bilateral headache that worsens with emotional stress. I think so. I made a yeah. Followed. Yeah. Okay, we'll discuss this. Actually, this slide's explanation is here. Okay, the types of a migraine can be classified like this. They can be said as focal migraine, migraine sign migraine, retinal migraine, ophthalmoplegic migraine, familial hemiplegic migraine, basilar migraine. These are the few types of migraine that have been classified. So, what is the focal migraine? Transient dysphagia, hemisensory symptoms, focal weakness on the focal weakness in addition to symptoms of migraine. Along with the migraine, if you find these focal symptoms, it suggests a focal migraine. Migraine sign migraine. Episodic disturbances without headache. See here. Episodic visual disturbances without headache. That means aura will be there, the headache will not come. Without headache, in elderly patient with a history of classical migraine are typically affected. So these patients are the one who had a classical migraine in their previous years. Now after becoming elderly, they have developed episodic, only aura will be there. The headache will disappear. Okay. Okay. You getting me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So only persistent aura headache is gone. In the previous years when he was younger, he used to get headache also. Classical migraine was there. That's what is migraine sign migraine. Retinal migraine. Transient unilateral visual loss in middle-aged person with a past history of migraine. So transient unilateral visual loss with the middle-aged. Middle-aged. If it is elderly, now we'll start suspecting temporal arteritis. It is middle aged. So, in the past history of migraine patients, you have to remember this. Ophthalmoplegic migraine. So, the rare, recurrent, transient paralysis of third nerve, which begins with the headache. Along with headache, they get a palsy of the third nerve. That is ophthalmoplegic headache. Familial hemiplegic migraine. Failure of full recovery of a focal neurological feature after an attack of migraine. Persistent weakness after the headache is after the migraine is focal hemiplegic migraine. Now, basilar migraine, it occurs in the children with a family history will be there, strong family history will be there. Migraines are associated with the numbness, tingling, and of the lips, of the extremities, and most important thing, ataxia. Because basilar brainstem will be involved, attacks of gait and speech, both. Impairment of consciousness also can occur. So the brainstem will be involved. The basilar, there is vasoconstriction of basilar artery and its branches causing to basilar brainstem dysfunction. These all features will be there. Basilar migraine. Note that it occurs in children. Okay, I'll go back to one slide before. Okay. A woman with a bilateral headache that worsens with the emotional stress. A woman with a bilateral headache that worsens with the emotional stress. She has two children, both are not doing well in the school. Diagnosis is
Tension headache, sir.
easy answer. The only thing is my typing is not correct here. Okay, it is tension headache. Doesn't require. Children are not doing well. That's why that mom is having headache. A 65-year-old lady by name of Kamala complains of severe unilateral headache on the right side and blindness for 2 days. 2 days blindness. On examination, there is a thick cord-like structure on the lateral side of the head. Lateral side of the head. The ESR is 80. 80 mmHg. At the end of first order shock. Most likely diagnosis is.
So temporal arteritis.
Yeah. See, this is a patient, is an old age patient. There's a cord like thick cord,
Inflammation.
thickening. There is an inflammation. It is an inflammation of a temporal arteries on the temple. You can feel that cord like structure with there. This inflammation will cause that. And there is a bilateral headache, which is it could be bilateral or unilateral, and there could be blindness for 2 days like that. These are all features of temporal arteritis. So if you younger patient, other things, cluster headache, male, sinusitis unlikely because cord like thinking all that. So we should go for temporal arteritis. Yeah, I have a slide on that. Temporal or a giant cell arteritis. Inflammatory disorder of the arteries. It is a inflammatory disorder of the arteries. Extracardiac artery circulation is involved. Elderly more than 50 years. 50% of the blindness is ophthalmic artery treatment is glucocorticoids. So this blindness now what transient you have heard. If you use steroids, they improve well. Headache could be either unilateral or bilateral. 50% are temporal, dull, and boring. So other places also can be heard. Seen headache could be limited to temporal region or whole cranium can also be involved. But 50% of the patients will be temporal region only. It will be dull aching. Superimposed episodic stabbing. It could be dull, sometimes stabbing. Scalp tenderness. You don't know this. Scalp tenderness could be there. Polymyalgia rheumatica, jaw claudication, and one more thing. See, elderly patient with headache and unexplained fever, you should think of giant cell arteritis. Fever could be there. They can present with the pyrexia of unknown origin, weight loss and all that, and weight loss, increase ESR, and diagnosis by temporary artery biopsy. Same thing, elderly, visual symptoms, malaise, fever, with or without pain, tenderness in over the temporal artery, cord-like structure, raise ESR. Almost right. Okay. 35-year-old lady Malti has a unilateral headache, nausea, vomiting, visual blurring. Diagnosis is. Tell me, what
Hmm.
is the diagnosis in this?
Sir, glaucoma.
Hmm. Hmm. Glaucoma. If there was a choice of migraine, huh, you could have thought of it, but there is no choice of migraine given here. Okay, the only you are supposed to huh, think of what is available now. Now, cluster headache means a male, unlikely. Glaucoma, it could be in female. Females are most commonly affected. Subarachnoid hemorrhage, Maltese unit, nausea, vomiting could be there. Visual blurring is not a sign of subarachnoid hemorrhage. Okay. Posterior fossa cyst. It is not like that. Unilateral headache. Why should they have unilateral headache? Posterior fossa, it can cause post-occipital, all those things. So these are unlikely. So these three things are unlikely, and this is the most likely possibility in the given question. Okay. If there was a choice on migraine, then you had it. Huh? Huh? But visual blurring is not a sign of migraine as well.
Yes, sir. Visual
Huh?
blurring is not a sign of migraine.
Migraine as well. Okay, it's not a sign of but you can get a fortification of spectra, all those things, but visual not visual blurring. But there could be blindness, na migraine. Hmm? Forget about it. Visual blurring is not a sign of migraine. But anyway, migraine choice safely is not given here. Glaucoma, what a sign? Prostrating, what? Nausea, vomiting, severe eye pain. Hmm? Okay. Huh. Glaucoma versus cluster headache. Female, male, cluster headache, visual blurring, reddening of the eye, homolateral lacrimation. Cluster headache you can have. Reddening of the eye. What? Reddening of the eye with the homolateral lacrimation is a sign of cluster headache, not visual blurring. Hmm? Young girl presents with repeated episodes of throbbing, occipital headache associated with ataxia and vertigo. The family history is positive for similar headaches in her mother. Most likely diagnosis is vestibular neuronitis, basal migraine, cluster headache, tension headache.
Sir,
What?
basilar migraine, sir.
Basilar. Why not vestibular neuronitis?
It's a young girl and family history is also positive.
Yeah. It is a when repeated episodes are there. Repeated episodes are there. And vestibular neuronitis will not cause throbbing headache. Occipital. It can cause a giddiness, vertigo. Uh, it can cause but throbbing occipital headache is not a feature of vestibular neuronitis. Okay. Huh? And ataxia can and family history and all those things points to something basilar migraine. Cluster headache is a male, huh? Peaks to 30 to 50 years. Tension headache is not a sign of young girl. Okay. So it is a best answer is basilar migraine. Basilar type of migraine, subtype of migraine with aura. Here, recurrent attack of ataxia suggests involvement of brainstem. Yeah, you can see ataxia. Onset is typically before the age of 30 years. Peaks it at adolescence. Female more likely. These two one. Family history is usually present. Headache is in the occipital region. Hmm? I am not able to hear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So points in favor of basal migraine in this case are repeat episodes, young girl, vertigo, positive family history. Hmm? This question. Two statements regarding migraine in pregnancy. Ketorolac is preferred. NSAID are the first line of drugs. Improved symptoms with pregnancy. Sumatriptan preferred over chlorpromazine.
Four.
What?
Sir, improves symptoms with pregnancy, sir.
Yeah, that is also correct. Hmm?
Sir,
Huh?
NSID also to given, sir,
Yeah,
in pregnancy also.
yeah. Hmm. Now we'll come to the migraine and pregnancy. NSAID like acetaminophen ibuprofen can be used in pregnancy. 60 to 70% of migraines improve spontaneously in pregnancy, usually in the third and fourth month. Ergotamines are contraindicated. Why? Migraine, ergotamines cause what?
Teratogenic effect, sir.
Vasoconstriction. Ergotamines are contraindicated. Triptans are not recommended. Hmm? Hmm? I'll come to that. Why? Huh? So before going to all that, drugs in a pregnancy. They have been classified in pregnancy. Now the drugs have been classified into category A, category B, category C, and category D and X. Okay. So what are category A drugs? Do you know these things? What are the drugs in pregnancy? They are classified among A, B, C, D, and X. So from if you move from A to A is the one which you can give. B you can think. C, D, X better not give. Huh? Hello.
Yes, sir.
See, A means adequate, well-controlled studies have failed to demonstrate the risk to the fetus in the first trimester of pregnancy, and there is no evidence of risk in the later trimester. That means the safest drugs will fall in this group. Huh? Am I correct?
Yes. Yes,
Hmm.
sir.
Now, when you come to category B, animal reproduction studies have failed to demonstrate the risk to the fetus. So, there is no adequate, well controlled studies in the pregnant woman. So, animals, there is no problem, but in humans, nobody has studied it. So, you can think of giving it. Hmm? These are really safe ones. Think of giving. Now, animal reproduction studies have shown an adverse effect to the fetus, and there is no adequate, well-controlled studies in humans, but a potential benefit may be warrant the use of drug in the pregnant with the despite potential risk. Now, these are the drugs which you should be very careful if you want to use. Only if the benefit is so huge, you give. Hmm? Okay, category say. Okay. Hmm? If you can avoid, please avoid. Okay, A drugs you can give, B drug you can think, C drug only if it is mandatory. You are paralyzed to give it. You are forced to give it. Then give C. D. There is a positive evidence of human and fetal risk based on the adverse reaction data from investigational marketing experience or studies in human. But a potential benefits warrants use of drug in a pregnant woman despite the potential risk. So the here animal studies there is a risk. Here marketing there is a risk. So there is a human study which is telling a risk. So better don't give this here. Avoid this. D means everything has shown problem. Animal study, human study, all study. There's a problem. Don't give. Huh? Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So A you can think of giving. B you can think of giving. You can A is safe. B think. C only if it is required. D also better don't give. X don't even think of giving. Okay. Hmm? That's how the drugs are in pregnancy are classified. FDA classification it is a FDA. Hmm? Now, status currently used for drugs in pregnancy. Acetaminophen B. What it says? B means what? Think
Think.
of giving. Breastfeeding it is caution. Hmm? What is this? Dihydroergotamine contraindicated. Okay, contraindicated. Ergotamine contraindicated. Contraindicated. C. Only if you think if it is mandatory, you can give. Huh? Because animal studies are not shown any benefit. I mean risk. Animal studies. Probably compatible in lactation. So C means avoid. Choose something better. Aspirin. C means what? Animal studies like that. Only if it is safe, you give. Only required, you give. And third trimester, don't give aspirin. Okay. Like C, we give them in a patient with the ischemic heart disease. Okay, aspirin. Imagine patient has got a heart attack and she is pregnant. Aspirin we give. I give because it benefit to the heart outweighs the risk to the fetus. Because aspirin, if I don't give, the patient will have one more heart attack like that. It is okay. So see, third trimester don't give. Better don't avoid it. Huh? Compatible breastfeeding you can give, no issue. Caffeine, B. Think of. There's no A drug only in this. Huh? Compatible. Ibuprofen, B. D. B. Yeah, one third trimester again falls to D. Avoid. Naproxen, B. Third trimester falls to D. Codeine, C. Huh? Avoid. Only if it required give. D means in third trimester don't give. These are drugs which are safety profile of drugs which are used in migraine in pregnancy. Which of the following best describes the patient with a classical migraine? Unilateral headache with the unilateral visual loss and muscle aches. See, you got a patient with it is a patient of classical migraine. I'm asking now. Unilateral headache with the unilateral loss of visual loss with the muscle aches. So retroorbital headache with the rhinorrhea and red eye. Visual defect that persists. Suggestion of a unilateral headache. Pulsating unilateral headache worsened with the movement of head. Tell me.
Sir, I
Classical
think
migraine. Now we'll come to this. This one. Left retroorbital headache with the rhinorrhea and red eye cluster.
cluster, sir.
So this is out. Huh? Huh? Visual defect that persists. Suggestion of unilateral headache. It's
This
not
is also
classical migraine. Huh?
not, which
Visual
is not.
defect usually they improve. With the unilateral headache when it goes. This is unlikely. Okay. Then you are left with 1 and 4. The unilateral headache with unilateral visual loss. Visual loss is not a classical migraine. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And muscle aches and all these things. These are not features of classical migraine. So the one choice that is left is pulsating unilateral headache worsened with the movement of the head. Yeah, movement of the head, if it increases, it is a migraine. Otherwise, if the movement of the head doesn't increase, then it is a mostly tension headache. Movement of the head, if the say patient is telling I don't increase in the headache, then it suggests a tension headache. Usually. Now migraine diagnosis. How to diagnose? Simplified diagnostic criteria for migraine. Repeated attacks of headache lasting for 4 to 12 hours. Migraine, not just classical. It is migraine. Now 4 to 12 hours in a patient with a normal physiological examination. No other reasonable cause for headache. In such a patient, you have to apply this criteria. At least 2 of the following should be there: unilateral pain, throbbing, aggravation by movement, and moderate to severe aggravation of movement is there in that. Moderate to severe intensity, and among these 2 should be there. And here from here 1 should be there: nausea, vomiting, phonophobia. So totally 2 plus 1 criteria. If they fulfill, then you can diagnose migraine. With this, no neurological deficit and all that. Patient present with a sudden onset of headache, ataxia, vomiting, and a downbeating nystagmus. Downbeating nystagmus, where you get? What is the diagnosis? Tell me, what do you get? What is the diagnosis?
Acute cerebellar hemorrhage, sir.
Where do you say it is acute cerebral hemorrhage?
There is ataxia and nystagmus there.
Ataxia and yeah, downbeating nystagmus. You should use this. Downbeating nystagmus is a sign of cerebellum. Something. Subarachnoid hemorrhage will cause a headache, which not necessarily occipital, and ataxia is not a feature of subarachnoid hemorrhage. Okay. Transient ischemic attack, you may not have
Epilepsy,
that.
like
No, TIA is a CVA, man. It is CVA, and it doesn't cause headache. There is no increase raised ICT here. Only if there is a this headache of in TIA, there is no headache. They don't have headache. Herpes simplex encephalitis, it doesn't present with occipital features. Usually, temporal lobe and all that, there is a involvement, focal involvement. They can present with epilepsy and all that. So this is unlikely. So TIA, this present more like epilepsy and all that. The fever and all that. Focal convulsions basically. Transient ischemic attack doesn't have headache. Subarachnoid hemorrhage doesn't cause a ataxia. So this is the best answer. 22-year-old man presents with the 22-year-old man presents with the history of headaches for 6 months. 6 months, which is mainly frontal region. Occasionally associated with headache, associated with nausea. 22-year-old man presents with history of headache for 6 months, which is mainly frontal region. Occasionally also with nausea. He has been taking paracetamol 3 grams per day. What is the toxic dose of paracetamol?
Sir, 80.
12 something, 12 grams per day. Huh? Toxic dose. 3 grams per day. Hydroxycodone 50 mg, because they can have paracetamol. If they consume, they can develop paracetamol poisoning. More than 12 grams. Okay. Per day, hydroxycodone 50 mg, 50 mg 3 times a day. Aspirin, such a large dose, 3 times a day for headache, but with only temporary relief in symptoms. Even he takes so much, there is no relief. No focal signs on neurological examination. He also has a history of depression and is on treatment for 2 years with a paroxetine. Now, what is the diagnosis?
Sir,
Now, cluster
analgesic
headache,
abuse.
migraine.
Analgesic abuse.
Yeah, another abuse is there. So these two are out. The whatever depression associated with headache. This is also very close. Depression associated with headache, but there is no hardly any treatment. Treatment is, if depression associated with headache means the patient is getting repeated headache only after taking some tablets. He is there is a relief in the symptoms, at least temporarily. But in this case, there is no relief for symptoms even if he is taking so much of drugs. So it is not depression associated with headache. It is analgesic abuse headache. Okay. All the following are the causes of primary headache, except,
Sinusitis.
yeah, as I said, primary means the problem is headache. Secondary means other causes causing to lead to headache. Okay, sinusitis is the correct answer. Same thing I have put. Tension headache is the primary headache. See, here the primary headaches are tension headache, migraine, idiopathic stabbing, exhaustional cluster. Here, systemic, all these things. Other than that, you can have this. Which are the following are the causes of primary? What I did? Yeah. Sumatriptan is contraindicated in all except. Sumatriptan is contraindicated in all except. Tell me where it is contraindicated.
It contraindicated in, sir, bacillus migraine also, and pregnancy also, and
Why
it.
it is contraindicated in a personal migraine? What does sumatriptan cause?
Sir, that is vasoconstriction.
Vasoconstriction. Yeah. So vasoconstriction, if it is causing, then bacillus migraine, there is a vasoconstriction here. When bacillus migraine, there is a vasoconstriction. Okay. In
Ergot
bacillus
alkaline.
migraine, there is a vasoconstriction. In ischemic heart disease, if you vasoconstrict, it will worsen the heart disease. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Pregnancy, sumatriptan is, it class category C, na?
Yes, sir.
Triptan, no? It was following category C. So avoid it. So ergot, they cause
Alkaline.
vasodilatation. You can give vaso.
Yes.
Okay. You can use sumatriptan. Contraindications of the sumatriptan. causes vasoconstriction. So vasoconstriction is a due visceral artery versus ISD. You should not give. It is category C. Right. Hmm? 70-year-old retired military person with a good previous medical record complains of a bitemporal headache, which is decreased in lying down position. Decreased in lying down position. He states that he gets a relief by giving pressure over the bilateral temples. Huh? Huh? The patient also complains of a loss of appetite with a feeling of feverish. The most probable diagnosis is.
Giant cell vasculitis, sir. Temporal.
Huh? What about brain tumors? Change in position causing headache could be a sign of brain tumors. Huh? Just keep in mind. And here there is a loss of appetite, loss of weight, fever is
Pyrexia
there.
of non origin also there, sir.
Yeah, fever is there, a headache is there, bitemporal pain, tenderness, and all these things suggest temporal artery arrest. That is a cause. Brain tumor, position change. So that's about headache. Now we'll move to upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron. Which of the following is not a sign of upper motor neuron paralysis? Babinski sign, spastic paralysis, denervation potential in EMG, exaggeration of tendon reflexes. Which is not a sign of upper motor neuron paralysis? Tell me.
Exaggeration of tendon reflexes.
No, sir. It's there.
So the exaggeration of tendon reflexes is the classical signs of upper motor neuron,
Upper
pyramidal
motor.
neuron.
Yes, sir.
Whereas in a lower motor neuron, you don't get exaggeration.
Decreased.
They are decreased. I'll come in detail about that. So what is Babinski sign? If you stimulate the lateral aspect of the sole,
Yes,
there
sir.
is an extension of
Present in less than 1 year of
toes.
child, sir.
Huh?
Present in less than 1 year of child.
No, that can be there normally. Babinski sign in adult, I'm talking the extension of the toes on stimulation of the lateral aspect of the sole. That is a Babinski extensor response. Spastic paralysis is a classical sign of pyramidal lesions or upper motor neuron lesion. I'll come to
Yes,
that
yes.
also. Denervation. Denervation. See, here the muscles are not deinnervated. The muscles will getting supply from the lower motor neuron from spinal cord. In upper motor neuron paralysis, the muscles will be still innervated, but from the lower motor neurons. So denervation potentials are not seen in EMG. It is a sign of element paralysis. Okay. So we'll come to this here. Yeah. The difference between upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron. Muscles are in UMN, in groups the muscles are involved. Here individual muscles may be paralyzed, not in groups. And you don't see atrophy in upper motor neuron. In element paralysis, you see the atrophy. Tone is type of paralysis spastic. Spastic means the initially if you try to extend, for example, the elbow, initially there is a resistance, and further extension suddenly it gives away. Suddenly, initially there is a partial, there is a resistance, and suddenly it gives away. That is a spastic. Whereas there is something called a rigidity or lead pipe hypertonia, where the resistance to the extension is throughout the extension from beginning to end. It is same. Plastic or hypertonia or lead pipe rigidity and all those things. You get a uniform resistance throughout the movement, passive movement. If you give throughout, you get a resistance. Whereas in clasp pipe, it is only to the initial part. Okay, that's what is seen in pyramidal or in upper motor neuron. What I told, other type of hypertonia I was discussing, that lead pipe and plasticity or uniform resistance, cogwheel resistance, all these things are seen in extra pyramidal. extrapyramidal. They're different from LMN. Now, extrapyramidal lesions. I'll come to that. Now, in UMN, you get a spastic hypertonia, whereas in LMN, there's a flaccid. Of course, there is an entity called as neurogenic shock. So, if there is acute upper motor neuron lesion, initially there could be flaccidity. But over time, this plasticity disappears and this spasticity will reappear. Like in stroke patient, so you can get a stroke, he have a not a spastic paralysis. Initially you get flaccid only, but after some days, the slowly the tone in the muscles increases and the patient goes for spasticity. But in UMN means you should say it is a spasticity, LMN it is a flaccidity. Same hypertonia, hyper, it is hypo here. Power paralysis both sides. In extrapyramidal lesions, there is no paralysis. Cerebellar lesions, extrapyramidal lesions, there is no loss in power. Remember this. Whereas upper motor neuron or pyramidal or LMN, there is a weakness. Okay, you should know that. Tendon reflexes are exaggerated in upper motor neuron, whereas they are diminished. This is exaggerated. Now, clonus, if the tendon reflexes get deep tendon reflexes there, superficial reflexes are different, deep are different. Okay, so deep tendon reflexes are exaggerated in upper motor neuron, where they diminished in LMN. Clonus is also again sign of this only, may be present, it will be absent here. Superficial reflexes are absent in both upper as well as lower. Babinet's sign is positive, that is extensor, this is flexor. Maybe absent. Fasciculations are the signs of LMN. Remember this. Fasciculations are the signs of LMN because they are all come with relation to MND, motor neuron disease. Disease will discuss about fasciculations. EMG, deinnervation, they are present. Deinnervation potentials, they are deinnervation potentials are absent here. They are innervated. They are absent. They are deinnervation potentials are absent here because they are innervated here. Still, they are as they are not innervated or as they are deinnervated. So these potentials are seen here. Reaction of degeneration. They're absent here and present here. Nerve conduction abnormalities are seen in LMN, they are not seen in UMN. Fasciculations are seen in. I just not told you.
Lower motor
Motor neuron disease. Okay.
Yes. Lower motor neuron.
Yeah, lower motor neuron disease I am asking now. In Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, this is not the disease of what you say? What? What? Fasciculation. There is no fasciculation there. And spasticity, it is sign out. It is also with the upper motor neuron. So this is unlikely. This is unlikely. Only this is the correct answer. Motor neuron disease could be UMN type, LMN type, most combination of these two. That is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is a combination of UMN and LMN. Motor neuron disease. MND. Who is Stephen Hawking?
Great scientist.
Yeah, he had this disease, motor neuron disease. Okay. So, what are fasciculations? These are visible, palpable twitches in the single muscle paralyzed ones, which have got a decreased tone. So, element paralysis has to be there. If there are twitches are there, then fasciculations can be seen. Maybe see. Which of the following are the features of extrapyramidal tract involvement? Answer this. increased muscular tone, paralysis, positive Fibonacci sign, exaggerated deep tendon reflexes. What
Sir,
happens to exaggerated deep tendon reflexes, which is a sign of a
this
pyramidal?
is pyramidal, sir.
Okay. Positive Fibonacci sign, again pyramidal.
Pyramidal.
Paralysis, pyramidal. But as I
Increased
already
muscle
told
tone.
you, extrapyramidal disease like Parkinsonism and all that, you don't get paralysis. There is a only increased tone. So that's what it is. Get lead pipe rigidity here. Lead pipe or a cogwheel. Cogwheel rigidity is actually lead pipe superimposed tremors. If you get a
Present in Parkinsonism.
yeah, that's right. Cogwheel is actually a lead pipe rigidity. If you get a superimposed tremors on that, you get a cogwheel rigidity. Now, yeah, this is a table showing difference pyramidal and extra pyramidal. Muscle tone increased here. Only thing it is a spasticity. I told spasticity means a clasp knife. Initial resistance suddenly give away. That is when you try to passively extend the elbows and all that. Initially there is a resistance to movement, and when you move initially it gives away. That is whereas in extrapyramidal rigidity it is throughout the passive movement. Distribution hypertonia, flexors of the arm and extensors of the leg. All anti-gravity muscles here basically. Flexor, distribution hypertonia. How a paralyzed person will be? How he keeps the upper limb. The upper limb is it is a flexed. It is flexed, pronated, and fingers are clenched. Am I correct? That's what.
Yes,
Opposite
sir.
to there will be there is a hypertonia. That is because of flexor of the arms have got a more hypertone compared to the extensor. It will be flexed there, and similarly extensor. The arm is leg is extended. Arm is flexed at the elbow, whereas leg is extended at the knee. That's how the pyramidal stroke patient will be. So
Yes, sir.
distribution hypertonia is a manifestation of that actually. Whereas extrapyramidal, it is uniform. So that's why a Parkinsonism patient, the typical posture of a stroke is not seen because there's a uniform rigidity of all the muscles there. Whereas there's imbalance in a tone. In a pyramidal, that's how that posture appears in a stroke patients. Whereas in a patients of Parkinsonism, multi-system atrophy, and all that stuff, you don't get posture. That filmy posture. You have seen many films in movies. The actors will show some posture. That is only for CVA. It is good. If they try to show for Parkinsonism, it's not correct. You must have seen those in the old movies, especially. Stroke patients, how they used to show. Old ladies sleeping on the bed when they try to get up and all that. Hmm? Hmm? Okay. Shortening and lengthening reaction, they are present here, but they are absent here. Involuntary movement are absent. Their involuntary movements are classical signs of in example tremor, chorea, arthrosis. These are all involuntary movement. We'll come to that later. These are all seen extrapyramidal. Tendon reflexes are exaggerated here, they're normal here. Fibonacci sign positive, it is negative. Paralysis is seen here. Paralysis of voluntary movement, but there is no paralysis here. Only rigidity will be there. Distribution of weakness in pyramidal tract lesions. Extensions more than the flexors in the upper limb, lower limb. Flexors more than the extensors in the upper limb. Extensors more than the flexors in the lower limb. Distribution of weakness in pyramidal tract. Extensors more than the flexors in the lower limb. So the what is the posture the patient gets? Extended elbow, extended knee. If the extensor of the knee are weaker than the flexors of the lower limb, knee, you can expect a flexed lower limb. That is what I've seen. You see a extended lower limb. How the limb will be? I'll show that. Upper limb will be something like this. Okay. This is the picture. Upper limb, this is upper limb. Lower limb will be straight. Am I correct? Huh? There is a flexion here. Huh? This is upper limb. So, what is the first choice? Extensors are more than the flexors. Weakness. Huh? So, weakness are
Wrong,
is
sir.
actually extensors are
Upper
stronger
limb.
here.
Yes, sir.
Extensors are stronger. So, there is extension. So, extensors are less than the flexors in the lower limb. This is wrong choice. Flexors are more than the extensor upper limb. Flexors are
Wrong, sir.
more stronger than the
Lower
extensor
limb, sir.
because there is a flux here. You can see this is also wrong choice. Anti-gravity muscles are affected. What are anti-gravity muscles? Huh? Flexors of the upper lumbar. Huh? They are actually anti-gravity muscles. They are actually spared. They are spared here. Hmm? Anti-gravity muscles are spared is a correct choice. Hmm? Pudendal tract lesions distribution. Yeah, written here. See. Hmm. Extensors are more than flexors in the upper limb. Flexors are more than the extensors in the lower limb. Supination is weaker. That's why there is a pronation, pronator drift. So the posture due to pyramidal tract lesion is this upper limb, this is the lower limb. Okay. A flexed pronated arm with the clenched fingers, extended abducted legs. Hmm? Bulbar palsy refers to what is bulbar palsy?
Sir, lower motor neuron paralysis.
Bulb means medulla, man. Bulbar palsy,
Uh,
lower
and
motor.
nerve involvement, that is 9, 10th,
Bulbar
and 12th.
palsy means lower motor paralysis of these nerves. Huh? Ninth, 10th, 11th, 9th to 12th nerves is bulbar. That is a bulb. Huh? Well, this is a element, is of course this is element, and this is this bulbar. Pseudobulbar means UMN type. Hmm? Element type, these two are the answers actually. Element type, paralysis, both are answers. Now we'll discuss about a bulbar and pseudobulbar. Pseudobulbar is UMN type. This is element type. Okay. Yeah, written here. Element type, UMN type. Hmm? And dysarthria will be, yes, both will be there. Dysphagia, both are there. Movement of the palate. Huh? That is a movement of the palate with what are written here? Voluntary it is. Voluntary. Voluntary movement. Huh? There is no voluntary movement of the palate. No here. There is no voluntary movement. Gag reflex is absent here and it is exaggerated here because it is a upper motor neuron. Okay. Because it is a gag reflex is a deep tendon reflex type. So it is present here. Respiratory impairment. There can be respiratory impairment here, whereas this is not there because the respiratory center is in the bulb only. Still, there is no, as the lesion is above, respiratory impairment will not be there in a pseudobulbar patients. Whereas bulbar patients, you get a respiratory failure. Jaw jerk. Element type means hypo. It is hyper because it is a human type. Hmm? Emotional liability, it is not here. There is an emotional liability here. Intellectual impairment, it can be there. If not there, here it is there. Intellectual. Sometimes it could be due to multi-infarct, bilateral infarcts of the brain. They develop a cerebral palsy, and multi-infarct state can have dementia. Hmm? Cerebral patient. That's why they have emotional liability, impairment, all that. Hmm? Bilateral severe. Bilateral stroke can cause pseudobulbar palsy. Hmm? All of the following are the features of pseudobulbar palsy except dysarthria, yes, dysphagia, yes.
Hyporeactive jaw, sir.
Yeah, it should be hyper. So this is the answer.
Uh,
Yes. Which of the following does not cause exaggerated jaw jerk? Jaw jerk, it is a brain stem. Brain stem. So multiple sclerosis, jaw jerk means it's concerned with above the medulla,
Hiring of
whatever it is.
myelin.
Because it has to come from above the bulb. So multiple sclerosis can involve above the bulb. Motor neuron disease can also involve the above the bulb. So all these things can increase. whereas syringomyelia, being a spinal cord disease, will not exert the jaw jerk. Jaw jerk and syringomyelia. Jaw jerk exerted in supranuclear lesions above the pons actually. Syringomyelia is a disease of the spinal cord. So common causes of exerted jaw jerk are neurodegenerative disease, generalized loss of cortical inhibition, pseudobular palsy, motor neuron disease, multiple sclerosis. Which is a pathognomic for motor neuron disease?
Fasciculation.
Yeah. See, there is no sensory loss in motor neuron disease. There is no pseudohypertrophy here. So bladder bowel involvement is not a pathognomic. Whereas the fasciculations, because anterior horn cells are involved here, fasciculations are seen in anterior horn cell disease. Anterior horn cells are seen where? Inside the spinal cord, from where the element nerve kick starts. These disease of that motor neuron disease can involve these anterior horn cells. They produce fasciculations. So motor neuron disease causes fasciculations. Okay. Motor neuron disease, upper neuron disease. What are types? Upper motor neuron, element type. You see, motor neuron disease can be due to upper motor neuron disease by this tract involvement. Corticospinal tract and corticobulbar tract involvement can be there. And it can happen only with the element type, anterior cell. Yeah, here. This specific actually. We'll come to this. Anterior cell degeneration, motor nuclear degeneration. And amyotrophic lateral sclerosis means both upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron combination. Isolated element type is polio, or it could be this spinal muscular atrophies, infant type, intermediate, adult type. All these causes what? Internal cell involvement, spinal muscular atrophy, isolated element type. Usually, this is a common amyotrophic combination. So, motor neuron disease is a big classification. You can have only upper motor neuron involvement. You can have only lower motor neuron tract involvement. And you can have both combination of upper motor neuron and element type. Both. It is a big disease. But sensor involvement will not be there. Remember this. Spinal muscular atrophy is seen in the graph. Where? Neuromuscular junction, any of the above, anterior answer. This is the correct answer.
Anterior answer.
Yeah. It is not peripheral nerve, it is anterior answer. It is a pure lower motor neuron hereditary motor neuron disease. That is spinal muscular atrophy. As I told you just now here, 3 types: infantile, intermediate, adult types. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis involves which among this? It doesn't involve this myoneural junction, myasthenia gravis. Forget about this. Okay. Ventral root ganglia. No.
Anterior horn cell.
Yeah, anterior horn cell. It can involve. It is both upper motor neuron as well as that is corticospinal tract as well as anterior horn cell. Amyotrophic corticospinal tract, that is pyramidal tracts, as well as anterior horn cells, both are involved, causing amyotrophic lateral sclerosis type of motor neuron disease. We'll discuss more detail when you're discussing motor neuron disease. This is a hexanucleotide repeat, the genetic DNA marker you get in where? Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis.
Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis.
And you can also see in a frontotemporal dementia. This is a correct answer. This is genetic abnormality. We'll read more about it. Hexanucleotide repeats. This mutation is seen where? This? Somebody has come and admitted. Iranna Potentiati. Why man, Iranna Shetty? You came so late. Okay. So, hexanucleotide repeats are seen in amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and frontotemporal dementia. This is the problem with this chromosome 9. It is autosomal dominant. This is the reason where this is seen. So that's all today. And tomorrow there will be ortho class. Surgery probably also. Surgery and ortho both. Hello?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
I will we will post it. Any doubts? Any
No,
doubts
sir.
if you got, I want you to ask. Iranna, you came very late. Anyway, this class is recorded. You can see. Huh?